Well, good afternoon. My name is Alan Sykes. I'm with the CPA and advisory firm of Sykes and Company, PA. We're in North Carolina. We we currently work with pharmacies all over the country, hundreds of pharmacies. That's all our firm does. And with me today is Bonnie Bond, who's a shareholder in with Sykes and Company, and also Brady Chatfield, who is the marketing genius behind the RxSafe system. And of course, today we have invited RxSafe to be a participant in the Master the Margin series that we're having. And I hope many of you have been participating in that series for the last few months, as we do one of these about every 10 or 15 days. And we are enjoying doing them, and hopefully you're getting a lot from it. But today we're going to kind of drill down into the RxSafe component of what they have available in the marketplace, and we are glad to have all of you on the live recording. And we would uh, also suggest that any of you that are listening to this afterwards on the recorded webinar, post or send any questions you may have to us at that time. For those of you on the live broadcast, please feel free to push in your questions as you have them as we go through the discussion today. So with that said, Bonnie, I think we'll just move forward to the first slide. Today, essentially, our intent here is to talk about the growth aspect, accuracy, and speed with respect to increasing your profit and cash flow in a pharmacy. And I don't have to tell folks on this call today how critical that all of these items are with respect to what you're doing behind the bench. And obviously what you're doing behind the bench and how efficient you are behind the bench has a tremendous bearing on what your potential profit and cash flow component are, and how efficient you handle that with respect to some of your payroll becomes extraordinarily important in that process as well. So that's the title of our webcast today with RxSafe. And this slide here, and Brad, I'm gonna just make a couple of comments. I'm gonna give this one to you. This slide here bothers me as an advisor and a CPA for this industry and industry only, and this is all we do. I'm very concerned about when I hear this on TV, when I see this, because clearly Amazon has figured out what's taking place within the industry, and they're obviously have gone out and bought the PillPack company and are rebranding this under their brand, essentially, is what they're doing. What's kind of strange to me, though, is it's taking them a little bit longer than I thought to really begin to push this to the degree that they have. But frankly, I view this as a real threat to independent community pharmacies. And fortunately, there are some options available to you, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But clearly, we believe that the PillPack service, which they offer, suggest is free, is going to be a big competition for you, whether you want to believe that or not. I truly believe that is already in place. And in the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to see it proliferate across the country and across the airways like you've never seen. So with that said, Brady, welcome to the call today, and I'll let you take this one because I'm sure this has a special place in your heart.
Well, thank you, Alan. I really appreciate that. And good afternoon, good morning, everybody. It's morning for me on the West Coast, but just a real quick introduction. Again, my name is Brady Chatfield. I'm the marketing director at RxSafe. In a previous life, I was a CEO of a small marketing agency, and most of my clients were in the healthcare field. So doctors, dentists, pharmacists, all of whom had sort of their own brick and mortar store. So needless to say, I've been dealing with Amazon and sort of, how do we overcome this beast for a long time, because, that's really who they're going after. And obviously they've bought Whole Foods, they've bought some other stores with a local presence. And I remember when they bought drugstore.com back in the early 2000s and didn't do much with that, ended up selling it off to Walgreens. But they're definitely a mover and a shaker and a disruptor. So when they sort of wade into your space, you have to pay attention. right? And I wasn't going to start with this slide because I don't want to be all like gloom and doom. Oh, the sky's falling. But the fact is, they sent me this email just a couple of days ago, and I'm in marketing. Obviously, they are a powerful marketing organization. Look how sort of clean it is, and there's this little box, and it's going to solve all your problems. But there's something at the bottom that's called a button or a call to action. And notice how it says finish signing up. So it's kind of like, hey, you're an Amazon Prime member. You're already in our system. So for you, you're already signed up. You just have to sort of click this button. And so as the guy who's the consumer on the other end of this email, it's like, oh, finish signing up. So, I'm already sort of part of the program and I just can do this so easily. And, then I'll get a free reusable travel pouch, $15 value to boot, right? So just, make no mistake, they are coming after your customer as the pharmacy owner. So you've got to have a response. You can't just sort of say, hey, we provide personal service. That's great and it's true, but it's not enough, right? So if they're offering pre-sorted, free delivery right to your door, it's automatic, it's autopilot, that's what Amazon excels at, right? And that's why people are a Prime member. I mean, I order things on there all the time and they show up at my door. Sometimes it was so quick to order, I forget I ordered it, and there it is. What's this? Oh yeah, that's right. So, again, not a gloom and doom thing, but this is just a reality. Um, they they are now starting to push this very hard. I've seen the TV commercials. I'm sure we've all seen those. We're seeing online ads all over the place, and they're obviously marketing to their very multi-millions of customers now, actively trying to push this. So, yeah, let's just kind of now dive into the rest of the
Absolutely.
presentation.
Okay, Bonnie. You want to
So,
take this one, Brad?
yeah, so if you're looking to start an adherence packaging program, you might look around and some of your peers are developing an entire brand around it. So the picture at the top there is Southern Pharmacy. He's one of our customers, Kyle Lomax. He's got 6 stores in Arkansas, and he has this box on billboards. He's got it on his website. He's got it on his Facebook page. And he's obviously spent a lot of money, taken a lot of time and care to create this brand that he calls the Southern Care Pack. And on one hand, you look at that and you say, well, yeah, if adherence packaging is going to be a commodity, then how do I stand out? Like, how is mine different? How is mine better? How do I sort of cement that brand in the minds of my customers, people that are near to me, in my neighborhood? I want sort of this unified brand message, obviously, that that I can present and promote because I want to stand out from the crowd. So that's certainly one option you can take. And a lot of our Rapid Pack owners who are doing adherence packaging have spent a lot of time and money kind of developing a brand, a name for the box. They've printed thousands of custom boxes and, done market research with focus groups to figure out, well, how do we brand and what do we say? And that's all well and good. But another option is what my boss has termed join the party, right? So we have our own brand that we've called Pack My Meds that anyone who buys a Rapid Pack can use. It's basically licensed to you in your zip code. And you can then take your pharmacy brand. So if you've got a drugstore, and some of you are running places that have been around 40, 50, 60 years, and so you've got your brand already, right? You've got your name. You might have a nice logo with it. So you can basically take your brand that you already have for your store and simply add the Pack My Meds as the adherence brand that goes with it. And so, again, it's completely up to you how you want to do that. The obvious advantage to using the Pack My Meds brand is it costs you nothing to develop. All the materials are already created for you, and you basically put your logo on that brand and it becomes your brand. So it's just a cheap, affordable, fast way to sort of get a brand kind of up and running without having to spend all the time and money to develop your own. So again, it's not a right or wrong kind of an answer. It's just for your consideration.
Are you seeing a lot of people, Brad, take your Pack My Med concept here and rebrand it for what they've already done there internally? Or are you seeing most people just join the party, as you say?
It's about 2/3 that are sort of joining the party, and about 1/3 that they already have a brand in place or they want to create their own custom boxes. And so it's definitely, both are valid options. Again, for my money, if I don't already have a brand that I'm actively using, and I just want to get going, then that's the way to get going. Just start with Pack My Meds and move on quickly from there.
Okay. All righty. I see Bill's walking into the room there. All right. Tell us about this Kickstart program you have here, how that works.
So the Marketing Kickstart program is kind of a suite of different options. And the funny thing about this is we can't really take credit for it. What we did to develop this program is we looked at our customers that were already successful. For example, Ben McNabb, who won the NCPA Outstanding Adherence Practitioner Award in 2018, he did this, right? He did all of this, and in fact, he started out from scratch, had no adherence patients, no program, no brand, no nothing, right? And within a year, he had grown that up to 200 patients, and then the next year, another 200, so 400 patients basically in 2 years. Pretty phenomenal. So we looked at his success, we interviewed him, we talked to him, what did you do? And basically, on the heels of that success and from talking to him and a few other customers that were doing things right, we developed this program, which is really just kind of a comprehensive approach to getting that brand out there in terms of adherence packaging. So we handle things like SEO, pay-per-click ads, video, social media, online, website, landing pages, and all the print collateral that you could think of. And then what's new is we launched earlier this year a program called Pack My Meds Network, which basically links all of the different pharmacy owners and providers that we have that are using Pack My Meds, and it brings them together on one website. So if you go to packmymeds.com, you can actually type in a zip code and see if there's a provider in your area. And so, not today, not tomorrow, but in the near future, I really think we have an answer for PillPack. And the answer is independent community pharmacies. You guys do it better. You do it better in terms of customer service, the relationships, the follow-up and the follow-through. And we're trying to basically grow a nationwide network of independent pharmacy owners who can, provide superior service and make them easy to find. So the whole goal of this program is to help you find customers that you don't know and help customers you don't know to find you. So that's the entire thing in a nutshell there. And again, it's modeled off of what's already been successful.
Yeah, well, we're very familiar with Mr. Ben McNabb and his wife Heather. They're excellent clients of ours, full disclosure, down in Texas. Ben is a very young, up-and-coming entrepreneur in this industry, and I was not aware, frankly, that he had this aspect of working with you here, so I'm glad to know that. But he is clearly a mover and shaker in this arena. No question about that.
Yeah, no question. So after the Pack My Meds Network launched, we had about 15 stores join, and we're up to over 30 now. But we did a quick survey because we want to know what kind of results they're getting, obviously, just from lead generation, from patient acquisition, and all that stuff. So I'm going to take you guys through real briefly here the results of that initial survey. And again, this is based on about 15 stores that participated, and they were kind of our first group that launched this. So over the first few months, they were averaging leads per month around 11, so just under a dozen leads. And those leads are basically emails, phone calls, people that saw an ad for Pack My Meds and then reached out to the drugstore through our network. And so as the pharmacy owner, you're basically getting leads coming to you from anybody who's in the zip codes that you're targeting. And these are folks that saw a video ad on Facebook. They may have typed, adherence or pill pack alternative into their Google search engine. So they're looking for you and they're finding you based on the ads that we're promoting in those zip codes. You can go on the next one. So patient conversion based on those leads, again, they're getting around a dozen leads a month and they're averaging around 3 new patients per store every month. So we're reaching the right people. And in fact, some of our pharmacies, as you can see, got even more new patients. Some got 5 or 6, a couple even got more than 7 leads. We had one guy up in Michigan, I'll tell you a little bit about him later, who was converting 90% of the leads that we sent him into patients. And so these are people that are on multiple medications. They see our video showing how basically, this kind of packaging can simplify their life, and they're eager to sign up. It's like, oh my goodness, this is a lifesaver. The funny thing is despite the amount of advertising and promotion that PillPack is doing, and now that Amazon's taking over, that's obviously growing, most people still don't know this kind of service exists. So if you're in a market that sort of, is asleep and hasn't heard of it, you can really get a big advantage because you're sort of the first to offer it in your area. And so if you're the only game in town, you're going to get a lot more patients. That's kind of how that works. So we looked at the patient satisfaction levels, and this is kind of miraculous. I mean, normally you do a survey and you get kind of a curve, normal. Some are really happy, some sort of medium, and you've got a few that are, not too happy. But here we have basically patients loving this product. I mean, and I think that's a real advantage that we have, even over PillPack or any of the others, in the actual pouches that we have. They're made of paper, they're not plastic, so they're not hard to cut open. You just tear them open, right? And they're clearly labeled, they're easy to read. A lot of seniors obviously have issues. They need reading glasses, or it's too dark, or they can't make out what the contents of that pouch are. And so with our very high contrast paper, it's easy to open. The satisfaction ratings are really through the roof, as you can see here. There's just, most people just love this kind of packaging. It's super convenient. Obviously, you can travel with it. You can lay it down flat and stick it in your suitcase or drop it in your purse and take it with you on the go. So I don't think there's any question why Amazon bought PillPack, because the mode of delivery for the strip packaging just seems to be far and away the most convenient for the patient. And I think they probably did a lot of homework before they bought PillPack, figuring out that, hey, this is really the future. This is going to be the best technology to use for this kind of delivery. So I'm kind of surprised by this, and on the other hand, I'm not as surprised.
Well, that's a really good point. In fact, I just tore off. I've picked up one of the Pack My Meds at Amerisource Thought Spot, brought it back, and I've kept it on my desk. And I've, a lot of pill bottles that I've tried to get into, sometimes you can't get into them. And
Right.
when you think about it and you talk about it, some of the plastic stuff, for example, I was trying to open a ketchup thing last night and put it on my sandwich. I couldn't open that thing. My hands would slide off the plastic part. And this paper here, you're absolutely right. It's very easy to get into to get this candy you got in here, by the way. And that's a very simplistic but a very important point here. Bonnie, have you tried one of these? Looked at this?
Oh, I have, yeah. I've seen them at all the shows. I can't imagine. I mean, I myself fortunately do not have to have multiple prescriptions each month, but if I did, I can't imagine why you would not be interested in that for both the convenience part and just really the adherence, like you mentioned, just to make sure I was taking everything like I needed to be.
Yeah, and our packaging was actually endorsed by the Arthritis Association. So I
Yeah.
mean, these are real problems that people have, right?
It is a real issue.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's a big issue.
yeah, there's
Much
no
more of an issue
question.
than I was thinking.
No question adherence is just on everyone's mind, and anything we can do to improve it is helpful. But this is definitely, I think, one of the best applications that I've seen.
We've got one question already, real quick, as Bonnie moves the slides. The question is, will this webinar be recorded and emailed out? They've got a poor connection, unable to fully hear what's being said. So the answer is yes. Anybody who's registered for this webinar, this will automatically be sent out to them. It'll also be posted on our website, which is sykes-cpa.com. That information will be listed at the end as well. So you'll have the access to this. Watch it as much as you like once this is complete. So what are we looking at here, Brady?
So here we've got the average number of medications for the people or the patients that came to these pharmacies through the Pack My Meds program. And if you average them all out, it's about 8.5. So, most people are taking, between 8 and 9 medications. That's kind of our sweet spot for our target audience. And that's exactly what we expected to see. The cool thing is, with the Rapid Pack coming with 20 universal cartridges, that means you can have 10 basically cartridges that are handling those 8 or 9 meds, running the strip, running the job, getting that done. And you could be using the other 10 cartridges to stage the next patient, like let's say they have 10, right? So it can make your workflow extremely efficient because you're basically handling, on average, 2 patients at once. So your tech is never just kind of standing around with nothing to do. They can actually stage this very quickly. And we've had several customers come back to us and say, they're able to complete 50 patient jobs in one shift very easily. So it really, there's no downtime with this system, and it's made to accommodate this exact type of patient, the one who's on, 8 or 9 or 10 meds.
We've got multiple questions now here. First question is, what happens when there's a change in meds?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, if you're with PillPack, good luck, right? You're going to probably call some call center and deal with somebody overseas who's going to say, well, tell grandma, not to take the blue pill every other day because we'll be sending her a vial, and but in a month when she gets her next cycle, we'll fix that, right? In our system, that person could really literally walk right back into your store and bring their box. You could actually cut open the strips, pour them back into the machine because we have chain of custody there. It's the patient's meds, right? And just rerun the job for her on demand in about 10 minutes. So that's a real fact. That can actually happen because of the way our machine works. It is that quick, and
Right.
you can make the change for the person.
Let me make sure I understand that. So if someone brings back in the box with all the strips in them, you have the ability to just cut those open and put them back into the machine. Machine does the sorting itself.
Correct.
And
That's
does
awesome.
the repack. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously you're going to put the the NDCs in the cartridge with like NDCs, but yes, you could basically repackage the entire job. And as long as a person's in your system, it is sort of an on-demand system. Now, I'm not talking about if they were a brand new person that just walked in off the street, but yeah, it is possible to do that.
One other question is, how will RxSafe address the pending USP 800 regulations? Will hazardous medications be able to be packaged with non-hazardous medications?
All I can say on that is stay tuned. We are working on it, and we plan to make an announcement shortly. So yeah, I can't just legally, I can't say anything at this point, but that's a great question, and we are addressing it.
All righty.
So Brady, is there a too small of an amount where it doesn't make sense to do the packaging? And in other words, if 1 or 2, 3, or does it any amount you can set it up for this?
So depending on our customers, some of them approach that in a different way. If let's say you're only on 2 monthly meds, some of our pharmacy owners will just say, well, no, we don't offer that, I'm sorry. We do have a couple though that will take you if you've got only a handful, and they use that as an opportunity to upsell supplements, because the Rapid Pack can actually package supplements and OTCs right along with the prescription meds. And they can all go, because the cartridges are universal,
Right.
you can just put that supplement right in next to, in one cartridge, and then the other cartridge has the script. Another cartridge might have an OTC med, and they can all be packaged just the same way. So it's very flexible. So if you wanted to sort of say, hey, I'm gonna take anybody who wants them, and I'm gonna use that as an opportunity to kind of package, obviously you could throw in a probiotic after their course of antibiotics is done, et cetera.
Got it. Good to know.
So this is right, bottom line, profit. What are we doing this for? Well, hopefully we're not doing it for free, right? I mean, Amazon says it's for free, but we all know you got to make money. And so we asked our pharmacy owners, what was your average profit per patient per month? And it came in just under $70. So, depending where you're at, I know Ben McMahon, when he was sharing his initial success, his average profit per patient per month was on the high end. It was over $100. So again, your mileage may vary, but if you're getting those high value patients that are, on 8 to 10 meds, you're going to, be able to bring in extra revenue. And don't forget, these people are now going to refill 12 months out of 12 instead of 7 or 8 or what's typical. So as long as you're, making a decent profit per script, it adds up quickly. We had one guy who's, already added 10,000 a month to his bottom line just after a few months of doing this. So it's really possible. But again, it's depending on your situation, and of course DIR fees and all the other stuff that factors in here.
Another question is your system compatible with Pioneer Rx?
Yeah, we love Pioneer Rx. In fact, that's kind of one of the PMSs that works best with the Rapid Pack. So it's a great system. It does from the MedSync to the long-term care module and gets all this stuff right in there. So we've even encouraged some people to switch to Pioneer if they have sort of an outdated PMS because it works so well.
So let me just add to that question with QS1, Computer Rx, RX30, any Liberty, any of those systems, all those systems work with your system as well?
Yes, they do. Yeah,
Okay.
As long as they can output what's called a long-term care or flat file, it'll work with our system.
Okay. And do you do direct referrals of patients with multiple meds?
I'm not sure what he means by direct referrals.
I didn't exactly understand that either. And Anthony, maybe if you could rephrase that, we can respond to that a little bit further. And we've got a question
we
here.
do get
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say we do have a Facebook page called packmymeds.com where I will get questions almost every day from people saying, do you have a pharmacy in such and such area? And if we do, I will directly refer directly to that pharmacy. Yes. So if that's what he meant, then the answer is yes.
Okay. All right. You want to cover this one with Clayton?
Yeah, Clayton just got started with us, I think in late June with his Pack My Meds program. And this is just a direct quote from the survey. So he said, we've definitely expanded our geographic area. These are good leads. We're using our compliance tech to reach out by phone. And then just kind of talking about how that works. So Clayton was the guy I was talking about earlier that he was able to convert 90% of his leads into patients. And he just had a really friendly tech that was doing the follow-up because if, obviously the more patient, knowledgeable, friendly you are, it's kind of a sales job. And you want to have somebody doing follow-up who can explain it very, very simply. Because some people, they watch a video on Facebook and then they fill out an ad form. Well, they don't know anything about medication synchronization. And, some of them might be thinking, oh, good, I'm going to get my box of, of strip packages tomorrow. And it's like, well, no, it's a process. And so you kind of have to explain how that works with talking to your physician, your insurance company, But mainly you're just there to support them and say, hey, we're going to do the work for you. We're going to get this done. Here's how it works. We'll get all your medications on a schedule. And then once we have that, we can start making this delivery. So, yeah.
Are you noticing any kind of correlation with those that have the systems with perhaps a geographical area expansion or slash delivery process that these pharmacies have figured out that if they have such a system and can market this correctly and have the right people involved in it from a compliance perspective, are you seeing folks take advantage of that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we've had people that started out with a delivery area of, 10 or 20 miles, and they've actually expanded that to 50 miles. So, and if you're only delivering it once a month, you might not mind driving it all the way out. And, it also helps, obviously, if you have a delivery person who is sharp, they'll hand that to the patient. So they won't just sort of leave it on their doorstep and walk away. That's what Amazon does, right? But they'll actually talk to the patient. Have you seen a doctor recently? Do you have any changes coming up that we should know about? How are you enjoying the service? It's all about relationships, and you guys know that as small business owners.
Yep.
And that's absolutely worth the trip if you're going to do something like that. The other thing is, for guys like Kyle Lomax, he's got 6 stores, and he described to me in detail a whole system where he fills out of one store using the Rapid Pack RX and does delivery in the service areas of all the other 6. So he's got a whole system down with mapping and routes just to make it as efficient as possible. So you can scale this in a big way if you kind of do your homework and just pay attention to who's getting what when and where they live. So he's got several drivers out every day, and the way he described to me just how he had kind of made that work was pretty incredible.
So he was really using a central field type of concept.
Even though he has all retail stores. Yeah.
And I think some states allow that and some states do not. But
Correct.
I think it's really more state specific situation than anything else. How about Brett here? Tell us about Brett.
So Brett is a guy who started way back in December of last year. So he's kind of one of our pioneer early adopter types. And so before he even started marketing, he noticed something really interesting. And that was that his DIR fees were going down based on the performance metrics for adherence for the patients that they had moved over. And he calculated, just kind of back of the napkin, that he could get ROI on the entire cost of the machine just in the savings from those DIR fees. So, I know everyone's dealing with those. We all hate them. I hope they're getting some laws or regulations passed to remove or at least mitigate some of those things. But I mean, here's a guy that figured it out pretty quick. Like, this is a way, they're not gone, but they're lower, and they're so much lower across the board that he's seeing a tremendous return on investment there. And again, that's without any marketing, that's without any new patients or more volume or anything like that. So I just wanted to share that because that was one of our early kind of aha moments.
Well, let's talk about this issue a moment, because this has become a very popular issue for us talking. I don't know Brett at all, but this is a very popular issue. In fact, Bonnie and I were on a call just this morning with a pharmacist whose DR fees for the month were like 4.5%. And then we'll see other pharmacies that will have DR fees in the 1.8 to 1.9 range. Keeping in mind that your DR fees and your adjudication costs, your checks and your electronic deposits that you're receiving, that information is net, and you got to gross it back up to get the proper sales number and get the correct gross margin number. But here's the point. What we've noticed over the last year in particular, as DR fees have really become an issue, and especially with the CVS Caremark on a trimester clawback basis, most others are doing it monthly, that those that have star ratings at 5 on an average basis versus it'll have those that have star ratings 4, 4.5 average, that those that have star ratings of 5, we're seeing DR fees under 2%. Those that have 4.5, it can be anywhere to 4.5%. So there's clearly a correlation, a dollar correlation between what's happening on the adherence side and the MedSync side. Obviously with MTMs and other things that you're involved in to keep your star ratings high. But this is a real big issue because when you take 1 percentage point of the average pharmacy in this country, which is about 3.6 million in retail sales, that's $36,000. So if you can reduce that 1 or 2 percentage points by increasing your star ratings, by having the technology in place like we're talking about here, that's a game changer. And Bonnie, I know we see that, we talk about it constantly, do we not?
With every single client.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huge issue.
So a lot of people ask me, again, along the lines of ROI, like how do you calculate a cost per job? And with our system, it's actually pretty simple. And the bottom line is with the consumable costs, that's paper, the cello, the box, everything, adding in the labor, so the labor for the tech to run the job, complete the job, and the pharmacist to inspect the job, we're at $4.54. So it's under $5 to produce this box of compliance package medications and hand it to the customer. So obviously this doesn't include shipping if you're mailing them out or delivery charges, et cetera. But the reason we call this dare to compare is that if you actually break it down and look at costs of running other systems, especially the ones that require inventory to run, which is all of them, you're talking about a huge amount of money invested in a machine. And all we're saying is, make sure if you're going to get strip packaging technology, and there are obviously other vendors out there, make sure you ask them the right questions, and the questions are, how much inventory does it take to run the machine? How many jobs can I run in a day with a single tech? How long does it take the pharmacist to inspect the final package before it goes out the door? Because as you know, that's the most sort of valuable labor in your cash flow right there. And so even if you're saving the pharmacist just an hour a day, that really adds up over a year. So if anyone wants this data sheet, they can just send me an email after the webinar. I can send it to them. But it's just, here are some questions to ask. Here are some points to consider. And we really want people to be educated kind of going in, because of course, the first thing out of the salesperson's mouth is, this is going to be great. They're going to tell you all the pros. They're not going to tell you any of the cons. And they're probably thinking, gee, I hope they don't ask me this question. So, just come armed with questions is the point.
Got another question here. Gentleman, Kevin has 2 stores and he wants to, his question is, how should you determine which one would get the RxSafe first if money is an issue?
Well, I would look at the patient population being served. And I've given this example before to new customers who are wondering, well, what zip code should I target? And I just tell them, look, you know your area, you know the lay of the land where you're at much better than I do. So if I didn't know anything, I would just go into your geographic map around your store, and I would do a little radius, and I would do it out 10, 15 miles, and then I would just do marketing and advertising all over that, using Facebook, using Google, what have you. But you're in the local area there, right? So well, actually, this town here 5 miles over is a college town. Okay, that's not our market. So let's not spend any money in that zip code, right? But over here, if you go farther to the west, now we've got this senior living community, this sort of retirement area. That's where I want to concentrate more dollars, right? So I would look at your stores geographically, look at the population base and the demographics vis-a-vis those 2 different locations, and kind of who has the higher concentration of likely customers. That's probably where I would put the machine.
And obviously the model that you were talking about with Brett would also be a possibility as well, would it not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, you have to look at staffing as well. You need a technician to run the system. You need delivery guys if you're going to be sending them out from a certain location. It might turn out that the best store is the one that's closest to the freeway system that, can get them out quickest. So yeah, lots of logistics, lots of variables to consider when
Are you
you're
are
doing
you
that.
seeing many pharmacies add any kind of delivery or handling charge to this process, or because of PillPack they're just letting it pass?
We are seeing more pharmacies that are planning on charging. I think when Amazon bought PillPack, the fear was, well, I can't charge because everyone else is doing it for free. But I really think it depends on the market that you're in. I know a guy up in Beverly Hills who's charging $50 per month for the service. Now, you can't charge for the packaging, but for the service, and he can get away with that. And in fact, I think the more people that start using this and get used to it, if you started out free and then you decided, hey, I'm going to add a $5 or $10 service charge, I think most patients would gladly pay that because they now know what a life-changing, life-improving, stress-reducing convenience that this is, and they would gladly pay $5 or $10 a month for it. Most of our customers, though, are not charging. They're just offering it for free, and they're even doing free delivery, with a driver right to your door.
Yeah.
That even seems like a good idea. If maybe it's not something that you could cover the cost on all the time, to maybe offer it free for a couple months to get them used to it, to see how great it is. And then when you start charging for it, possibly they'll want to stay on board.
Yep. So just wanted to break down kind of some cash flow. When we started selling automation at RxSafe, 10 years ago, it was sort of like, well, you can't afford automation if you don't have a certain amount of volume, right? Because if you're not doing 500 scripts a month or a day, how are you going to save labor if their labor isn't that big to begin with, right? So we're encouraging people, though, to look at strip packaging a little different. So it's not really about do I have a high volume store? It's more about how many new patients can I pick up that are using this kind of adherence packaging? And we basically have this basic 30-10-10 formula where if you've got $10 average profit per script, you've got an average of 10 scripts per patient and $100 a monthly profit, then you really only need 30 patients to see 3,000 a month in new profit. Now, not revenue, I'm talking about profit, right? So if you're bringing in 3,000 a month with 30 patients, you've got more than enough cash flow to cover the cost of the lease payment on a rapid pack. And oh, by the way, we can get deferred payments for 90 days while you build up that new patient population. So we're basically telling people, if you're looking at it as a volume thing, you're kind of looking at it you need to look at it in a new way. And you guys know better than I do how cash flow works, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, we obviously, with any kind of technology that's been added to pharmacies, we typically look at two options. One's a cash purchase. One is typically either what we refer to as a financing lease, which is probably most of the way you're handling your leases, versus a quote operating lease, which is just purely a rental for a short period of time with maybe a fair market value buyout. A financing lease being defined as where maybe you're paying the first or last payment up front or have some deferral up front, but at the end of the 3, 4, 5 year lease period, for a dollar you own the equipment. That's in essence if you're that's in essence assuming that you're purchasing the equipment in that arrangement. That would be a financing lease versus an operating lease. So that's what we see the most, because most folks want to take advantage, obviously, of the various depreciation and write-off methods that they have. Obviously, if you're profitable and you use Section 179 depreciation, you can write off up to 100% of the cost of the equipment. That is if you're profitable. If you're not profitable, you might consider using the Section 168K, which would also allows for some very accelerated depreciation. You need to talk with your tax advisors about what might be in your best interest with respect to what's the better method to take that in consideration. A couple things you do need to remember, as shown in this slide, is if you make commitments on any kind of technology equipment, especially this equipment you're talking about here, it's got to be placed in service on or before the end of your calendar year or fiscal year. And of course, this depreciation applies to new and to used assets as far as Section 179 is concerned. I got a question here I want to get into. I'm not sure whether you want to talk about this much, but a gentleman says he's got a product machine with 400 sync patients. He wants to know, do you offer incentives to switch to your system?
Not per se, although we have had many customers who have gone from the Parata system to ours. I heard one guy who said he's going to basically keep it as a backup, maybe just use it for hazardous drugs. But yeah, we don't have any like trade-in or buyback or anything like that. Although we do have a few of those machines in our warehouse, just because people said, hey, get rid of it. Can you take this for me? And so we said, sure.
Yep. Need to keep in mind on any trade-in now under the current tax law, the law's changed. And if you're giving any kind of credit or trade-in value for that equipment you're trading in, and if you've already depreciated it, you've got to recapture that as ordinary income. So be careful with your trade-ins, whether it's vehicles, whether it's robots or whatever it may be. That law has definitely changed. Now that situation is different with real property, but with personal property, you got a potential tax issue there that comes into play that you've got to keep in mind. Bonnie, anything you want to add here that we've talked about before we get to the assessment area?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate on the difference between the Section 179 depreciation and the bonus. I think you might have mentioned it, but the Section 179, again, that cannot create a loss for you tax-wise, but the bonus can. And with both of those being 100% now, it's going to really give you a lot of opportunity to for our taxpayers to do what they need to do to mitigate some tax if there's a purchase that you need.
Also, which slide you going? You go to this one?
I think we're going to be this. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this. Just for information, for those of you who have not been on our prior series of Master the Margin, we do offer here at Sykes & Company what's referred to as an Rx assessment service, where we essentially, it's a third-party overview of your current accounting and your tax situation. We actually take your accounting files, your prior year returns, other information that we request, and we do a deep dive down into them. And we go back multiple years with respect to both tax and accounting, and you may or may not be surprised at some of the issues and problems that we find in that process, especially in light of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that came into effect 1/1/18 with the changes that you're now allowed to do as a pharmacist, i.e. You can go from accrual to cash very easy now with certain limitations. But even if you are very extraordinarily pleased with what service that you're getting from your current tax person, this gives you a really good opportunity for someone who works with hundreds of pharmacies, been doing it for decades, to get a completely different view of your entire operation. We do charge for that service. It's $1,495, and it's listed on our website. There's also a link there. We would invite you to take a look at that. We would also invite you to take a look at our website, where we literally have hundreds of videos on pharmacy specific topics. We replace or add to those about every 10 days or so. All of that is in the public domain. It's in the media resources area of our Sykes-CPA.com website. And all the things that we're talking about here today that are tax related or advisory related, you've got to keep in mind that some of this may or may not be in your best interest, and you need to check with your financial and or tax person to make sure that your situation is correct for any of these considerations. So just don't take this as a blanket suggestion. You need to do it without taking all of the aspects of this into consideration. Would also add, if anybody else has any additional questions, please don't hesitate to push them out now. Now would be a good time to throw those out. And Brad, before we wrap this up, you want to make some final comments here?
Yeah, just first of all, just thank you to everybody who's been listening in, and thank you, Alan, for having me as a guest on the webinar. I've really enjoyed just listening to your questions and answers in terms of the stuff from the tax side. I think I would wrap up with just, if you're interested in taking advantage of the Section 179, as Alan said, we have to get this system installed and in place by the end of this year. The good news is, if you take that accelerated depreciation and you look at the cash flow and the model that I showed earlier with the 30-10-10 program, basically you're gonna see ROI on the system within your first year, and we've proved that. Many of our customers have seen that. So I mean, it kind of sounds too good to be true. Like this just can't happen, right? I mean, you basically get this machine that pays for itself. But we've got the evidence. We've got a pretty good track record now. We've been selling this, and installing it since basically August, so more than a year now. So the kind of the jury was out. Well, now the jury's in, and it's real. And it just sounds like marketing hype. And I know I'm a marketing guy, so take it with a grain of salt if you want. But ask our customers, and I'll be happy if you want to email me to refer you to any number of people who can vouch for what I'm saying. This is something that you can take advantage of, but you just don't have a lot of time. I think, if you want to start a discussion with us, what we've been telling people is, if you can make a decision by, let's say, mid-November, we could pretty much guarantee you will have a system installed by the end of this year. So you've got about a month to think about it.
That's what I was going to ask about, your turnaround time at this point.
Yeah, and come see us at NCPA. We'll be there. It's here in San Diego. It's kind of in our backyard. Believe it or not, we make all of our systems here in the good old US of A. Most of our parts and service suppliers are within 10 miles of our office. And we design, manufacture, build, and support everything out of our headquarters here in San Diego. So, I don't know if American made means anything to anybody anymore, but we're, the only company providing a system like this that's made in the good old US of A. So.
One thing I just wanted to add, some of the tax rates in this country can exceed 40% state and federal. Especially in California, excuse me. So obviously, when you take, and if you have profits, and you take a 40% reduction, if you're in that tax bracket, from the price of this type of equipment, it is a substantial amount of return. Again, if you have that equipment installed and in use by the end of the year. With that said, again, we would refer you out to both LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, our webpage here for those. The bottom left here shows you about the media resources that we have. If you have specific questions that we can answer, don't hesitate to email them directly to us or to Brady. His email was in the slides, and you'll be getting a copy of the webinar to be able to see that. Our direct phone numbers here to our desk are here. We too will be at NCPA, speaking at the ownership workshop, as well as selling your pharmacy seminar and doing a CE on Tuesday on the final day in the afternoon. So we look forward to seeing everyone out there. Brady, look forward to seeing you guys in 70-degree weather that you typically offer to your visitors. And we'll look forward to being there. And again, we appreciate everybody being on the webinar today. And thanks again for helping us today, Brady.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Brady.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Afternoon.
Bye-bye.